Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to talk about another very common JavaScript interview question. What is a promise and how is it different from async and await? This is one of those questions that almost every front-end developer should know because we deal with asynchronous code all the time. So let's make it simple. A promise represents the result of an asynchronous operation. In JavaScript, some operations take time. For example, fetching data from an API, reading a file, waiting for a timer, getting data from a database. Since these things don't happen immediately, JavaScript gives us a promise to represent the future result. A promise has three states: pending, the operation is still running; fulfilled, the operation finished successfully; rejected, something went wrong. So you can think of a promise like this: I don't have the result right now, but I promise I'll give it to you later. Usually when we work with promises, we use .then for success, .catch for errors. For example, here fetch returns a promise. When the request is successful, .then runs. If something goes wrong, .catch handles the error. This works fine, but sometimes when we have many async steps, .then chains can become harder to read. That's why we often use async and await. Async and await is just a cleaner and easier way to write promise-based code. It makes asynchronous code look more like synchronous code. That means the code feels easier to read, easier to follow, and usually easier to maintain. Here's the same example with async and await. Instead of using .then again and again, we use await to pause until the promise is resolved. And we use try-catch to handle errors. This is the most important thing to understand. Async and await does not replace promises. It's built on top of promises. So when people ask, what's the difference between promise and async and await? The answer is, a promise is the actual object that represents an asynchronous result. And async and await is just a simpler syntax for working with promises. In other words, promise is the concept, async and await is the syntax. Or even simpler, promises are the engine, async and await is the nicer interface. Let's compare them. This is promise version and this is async and await version. Both examples do the same thing. The main difference is readability. Async and await usually looks cleaner and more natural. In real projects, both are valid. Use promises with .then when the logic is short and simple. Use async and await when you want cleaner and more readable asynchronous code. A lot of developers prefer async and await because it looks closer to normal step-by-step code. If you wanna answer this in an interview, you can say, a promise represents the result of an asynchronous operation and can be in pending, fulfilled, or rejected state. We usually handle promises using .then and .catch. Async and await is a simpler syntax built on top of promises, and it makes asynchronous code easier to read and write. If the interviewer wants a shorter answer, you can say, a promise is an object for handling asynchronous operations. Async and await is just a cleaner way to write promise-based code. Alright, that's it for this video. If you're preparing for JavaScript or front-end interviews, this is definitely one of the topics you should be comfortable with. If this video helped you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.